Hey, what's going on, champs? I'm Aaron Deliosa. Welcome to an Immigrant's Life podcast, my podcast about immigrants and immigration and everything in between. Thank you for listening and downloading the show, and thank you for supporting my dad.
Welcome back, Immigrant Nation. Another week, another new episode. As always, every week, I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for your presence. Wherever you are, whenever you are listening to this, I really appreciate you and I'm really grateful for you. If you haven't joined our powerful community, there's no better time than now to go ahead and click the subscribe button wherever you're listening to this podcast. And you can also join us by visiting our social media accounts. Our handle is @AnImmigrant'sLife. How was your weekend, guys? Mine was pretty amazing. I went on a bike ride for the first time this year. I was so excited. The weather was so beautiful after the ice storm that we had. It was just like the sky cleared up. So I was really grateful. I went for a 51 kilometers ride. For the one that uses miles, I don't know, dude. Just go Google it, all right? I went with my friend and man, it made me grateful, you know. I just can't ride indoors. It's not for me. So if you follow me on the social media, like I said earlier, I'm gonna try to post more videos and pictures of me going on these adventures. All right? And as always, every week, if you or someone you know wants to be a guest on the podcast, reach out to our social media accounts or email us at animmigrantslife@yahoo.com. Let's connect and let's tell your beautiful story. Now, let's talk about the episode. The guest this week is exploring his culture through his artistic sensibility and is kind enough to allow us to experience it with him. This episode reminds me of listening to a soft rock album, calming and enjoyable. So I hope you enjoy listening to it too. And let's not waste more time. Without further ado, let's get into the show. Isa, dalawa, tatlo. Today's guest, an award-winning filmmaker. He is a perfect example of it makes no difference where you're from. Who you decide to be is what counts. Everyone, please welcome Nick Leffel.
Thank you so much, Aaron, for having me. And thank you so much for letting me be on your podcast. It's a great pleasure. And I can't wait to talk with you.
Oh, thank you for coming on and all the kind words. I really do appreciate it. I do.
Thank you so much. And it's just been really wonderful to be able to see how you've been able to cultivate such a great community of immigration stories on social media and also on your podcast as well. Thank you so much.
You're too kind. I'm not good with compliments, so drop the compliments. That's good enough.
All right, I'll stop right away.
One line, two lines, I'm good, thank you, and then we'll move on. Why don't you tell the Immigrant Nation where they can reach you, or if you want to promote anything before we start?
Yeah, I have my website at Squarespace. It's nickleffel.com at Squarespace or on Squarespace and everything, and you can find me there. I think. Also, my Vimeo page where all of my videos are at is nicholas.l, and you can find all of my films and anything you want over there.
Mm-hmm. I didn't had a chance to look at some of your videos, but your website is beautiful, man. Well done.
Oh, thank you. It took a lot of work to try to be able to create something that might be interesting or more easier to look at the eye. I'm not the best at making websites, so I had to take some advice from friends.
Hey, at least you can make a website. I don't even have a website.
Yeah, of course.
By the way, where are you located from?
I'm in Chicago.
Oh, the Chi City.
Yeah, it's the Windy City. That's where we're at.
Mm-hmm. Were you originally from Chicago?
No, I'm actually not originally from Chicago. I grew up I was born in Yekaterinburg, Russia, And then I was adopted as a toddler and brought over to the United States to a wonderful, loving family that lived in the Washington, D.C. area. And then we all collectively, after a couple of years, moved over to Madison, Wisconsin. And now I'm in Chicago doing my filmmaking thing.
Mm. Why did you move to Madison?
I think it was closer to some of my family members and stuff, and just because of job opportunities. And yeah.
Mm. Do you mind talking about like the process of the adaptation? Like your adopted parents, why did they decide to go to Russia? Why Russia? Why not just, I don't know, a different country?
Yeah, of course. I think, to be honest, my parents, my birth parents, wonderful people, they knew kind of right away that they wanted to adopt a child, and they believe in the adoption system. And, it's, of course, a really multifaceted system with many, ills and things that are kind of convoluted within it as a system. But in general, the kind of need to want to help other people and to contribute towards, bettering children who already are in need, they really prescribe to that type of thought. And they wanted to reach out, so they went to an adoption agency that worked with international adoption, and I think as well at home adoption, but I'm not quite sure specifically. And they didn't really choose Russia. Sort of Russia chose them, or the adoption agency just showed them these are some of the kids that we're looking at, and these are some of the kids that come up for us right now. And I guess in their database that I came up for them, or at least that's how I've been told, and stuff. Maybe there are a couple details that I can't remember in between there. And they said, okay, for sure, yeah, we'll just go to Russia and figure this out.
That's beautiful. What was it like to grow up as an adoptee?
That's an interesting question, because it's sort of an ever evolving thing. I'm finding out so many different things about it, and I still feel like as though I'm kind of rediscovering a lot of facets of adoption and adulthood as well. But growing up, I guess it was always being adopted as a toddler. I don't have really much memory of an orphanage, and for me, a lot of my identity was understanding that I was adopted and being in the United States, as a really young kid, and understanding that my parents are, people who aren't, biologically related to me at all. They would constantly remind me that, I was adopted, just so that as a young kid that I would be able to understand this like extremely vast concept, and everything. So there was no sense of like reveal. And also my adoptive parents and my adoptive family is white, and so I've vastly look different than them. So
they're like white.
White, yes. My brother is blonde, and I'm in a family of blondes and brunettes, and yeah, it's a whole trip. But I would say that in that capacity, my family has been extremely, really amazing to be able to grow up alongside them, and I obviously had no feelings that I'm ever separated or away from them in that capacity. But I think societally that there were a lot of things that, that made me different and kind of differentiated myself and the way that I grew up and the way that I perceived the world that was very different than, non-adopted kids. I grew up in a predominantly white community in Madison, Wisconsin. And, as a young adopted kid, to be able to tell other people that, I was born in Russia and I am a Russian person, people would look at me and they're like, oh, no, you're not. Like, I don't see anything of it. I had no idea of anything, because that's just all I was told. If you tell a little kid that you're from here, this kid's going to believe it. So I promptly did as I was told, and I, told everybody where I'm from, and, and stuck to it for a long time.
Do you have siblings that are also adopted?
I have no other adopted siblings. I have a younger brother and a younger sister, and they are biologically related to my parents.
Okay, so they adopted you, and then suddenly they start having babies?
Yes, yeah, no, that's just the way it happens.
Yeah. I've heard of that. Like couples trying to have babies for years and years, and they don't have babies, and then they adopt it, and then they start having biological babies.
Yes, of course. And it's whatever way the family wants to form. I think it speaks rather to the form of what is a family, what a family means to, what means to be a family. I don't view my siblings as any different or, dissimilar to me because of their, relationship with their parents in any sort of way, and stuff. And really that it shows that the bounds of familial relationships are built upon trust and responsibility and being there for one another and being with each other and stuff. And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're lucky that your main family, they made you feel that you are one of them, which you are one of them. But were there other nuclear family members or family friends that somehow made you feel like you're kind of off to the side, kind of? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think outside of my family immediately, just growing up in the United States in general, systematically there are so many things in place that we can't escape from racism within, like if it's systematic or if it's, verbally communicated, it's a very ever-present thing. And I think that like growing up in a predominantly white community, in being able to, try to exist in a space, there's definitely a lot of like xenophobia against, brown and black and indigenous people. So being able to, growing up like that, and as a young kid, I think, it's really common to kind of try to understand and approach racism as like, a very, it's a very real concept and everything. But for a young kid, they don't see the world in this sort of way. They don't see the world in like, I am this person and I belong to this group in any way. I think, that's something that, previous generations have put in place and was for, a lot of adoptees have to experience that. And it's quite frustrating and it's really unfortunate.
Being adopted, even though you knew that you were adopted, but obviously, like you mentioned, you look different from your siblings. Did it create some turmoil inside you in the question of identity?
Yeah, most definitely. In terms of identity, I think, I knowing where I was from, knowing that, in terms of my adoption and the information that come with it, in similar to Josh Bro, who was previously on your show, who's a good friend of mine, in similar to him, I didn't have very many details about my adoption, just known in general because of the circumstances under which I was born and stuff. So there's a lot of information that, that many people would know about themselves that I simply do not know or know if it was made up in an attempt to kind of not have my birth family not be tracked by, anything in any sort of way and stuff. And so in terms of identity, I think that a lot of adopted people have the wondrous opportunity of being able to sort of define who they are in the moment of what they want. It's being able, being abandonment in a sort of way is a very devastating thing. And we can't stop that this is a thing that happens, but what we can do is try to, better ourselves and be able to define who we are as a person. So identity wise, trying to fit in the United States, I look, Latino or half black, and that, society doesn't really have in the United States a category for people who are from Central Asia because it's an extremely underrepresented community. So therefore, a lot of times, assuming wise, people would approach me and act around me as if I belong to one of those other communities. And, growing up with that, I have a great amount of amicability and affection for these communities, just by proxy. And I don't think that it's, I think a lot of people maybe growing up, if, you're not with if you're mistaken for another community, that possibly you have a really good and binding relationship with that community because you might be experiencing some of the troubles that they might be experiencing or just by default by passing as one of them.
100%. Like Great example would be my former guest, Soka Yoon. He's a Cambodian, and he was so close to the African Americans that he was like one of them. The community used to call them the Black of Asia. You know.
Yes, of course. When definitely, and there's the concept, and of course, and I think this has probably been talked about on your podcast about a million times. But the concept of like passing, white passing, black passing, whatever it may be, brown passing, and it's the opposite perception from other people of what you are and how you should fit into society. So that really indicates a lot internally of a person of how they should identify as. But as an adopted person or any person, I think you have the freedom in this life and in this world to be able to identify for yourself who you want to be and stuff. So it doesn't really matter, whether you're living with a white family. You can choose to be a part of your community that you come from.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure that there's trauma that came with abandonment. Have you dealt with that? And if you have, what have you done personally?
I think trauma and abandonment might be a little bit different than probably what I have experienced and stuff. I think, I will say, growing up in the United States, it's definitely a vastly different experience. I would say that in terms of seeing a lot of these mixed kids who live in Russia, who are multi-ethnic, who are not just white, and seeing some of the ways that, they live, and a lot of them are extremely impoverished, and the current situation in the country is extremely dire. I would say that, one of the larger things that I feel less than abandonment is an overarching sense of guilt that, I see these other kids who, come from this exact same communities that I came from, but they have to lead much different lives because of it. And though they are connected closer to their culture, it's just a difference. And I think all adopted people have to kind of really take a look at this and see how they want to approach it.
Yeah, I completely see that. I saw in your video that you did a DNA test. What did you learn from it?
Oh my goodness. The recent development of being able to have access to companies like Ancestry DNA or 23andMe has completely changed my world. Growing up, like I had mentioned previously, an understanding that I was just born in Russia, and I thought that I was just Russian. I mean, growing up, I had, almond-shaped eyes and dark black curly hair, dark brown eyes, and olive-colored skin. This is not the typical, phenotype of a Russian, or what would be stereotypically understood as a Russian person. And I think growing up, I was able to attend, an integral immersion language and culture camp that revolved around Russian language and culture, located in northern Minnesota. So I was able to go to this summer camp and be able to continue speaking Russian fluently with all of and develop relationships and friends with a lot of other people who were also adopted from Russia as well. Therefore, I was, I solemnly identified as a Russian person and didn't really understand anything outside of that. The communities that I come from were kind of unknown to me in my younger childhood completely, as there's not much dialogue that had been talked about at all in the early 2000s and 2010s as well. So having said that, I just completely thought I was Russian and had no other inhibitions about what else I could be until a couple literally this past year, I took a 23andMe DNA test. I thought to myself, it's been a while. I don't really know what my ethnicity is. I don't know anything about myself. I knew that I was something else, and I knew that I'm obviously not white like most Russians, but I never took it upon myself to really want to find out, what I was. So I took the 23andMe DNA test, and the results were astounding. Absolutely. Not finding out not having any Russian or European blood was a little bit of a surprise, to say the least. But it basically broke down into part North African, specifically from Morocco, part Azeri from like the Caucasus from Azerbaijan, part Central Asian, and a little bit Ethiopian as well. So a really vast mix of things that I don't even know. And in terms of Central Asian, we have leads and we think just by family research and stuff that it might be from Tajikistan or Uzbekistan, but probably more so Tajikistan. But I'm not 100% sure because the test didn't really tell me that much information about that. But yeah, no, it was extremely astounding. So being able to call myself whatever, being able to self-identify with these things was extremely eye-opening to me. And I have been able to, kind of live my life understanding where I come from, but also understanding that like I've received a large mix of things and can't really identify with one completely. So yeah, extremely mixed.
That's amazing.
That's what I
man.
identify as.
That's beautiful. Well, when people are mixed, I just usually call them future people.
Yeah, why is that?
Well, because you guys are gonna be the future people. Because mixing will be the future, right? You cannot have
globalization.
Exactly.
Of course. Well, even people who are, homogeneously in that, I think that there's also, some diction that, it just goes to show that we all lead really different lives and have vastly different experiences. And yes, maybe because of globalization, the future will hold a vaster range of, or I would say a less or lack of ethnocentricity in that. So yeah, I would say that you're right.
So figuring out where your DNA is from, your genes is from, did it help you form your identity, or you have had your identity formed already before that?
Yeah, I think in terms of identity, and one of the great things about just being able to exist in general is that, you're constantly able to kind of rewrite yourself and rewrite who you are and dictate who you are as a person. And this, it goes for anything, though, no matter where you're from and stuff. So I think that growing up, for me, I identified just as, being me. I inherited like a sponge everything that was put in front of me, as one kid does. And that's how I identified. And, growing up as an adult, I've been able to really try to find and relate to this artistically as well, that these sorts of things really, inhibit who we are. You can take who you are ethnically and take it along with you. Or if you choose to not identify with that at all, there's no shame in it. I see so many people who are adopted from, from people of color who are adopted in the United States. And I think a lot of times, a lot of people who are adopted tend to fall into two categories: people who are, very, very much obsessed, or like not in a negative way, of course, very much passionate about the culture and the place that they come from, and a lot of and other people who maybe don't subscribe to that at all. And I don't think that one is better than the other. I don't think that, being passionate about your culture is inherently better or worse than, just being here. I think the construct of adoption really puts a lot of people into a very awkward place in society. That doesn't make it better or worse that they're here, maybe in the West, or, not in the country that they came from, especially for like international adoption. So therefore, it's in terms of like identity and identity struggle, for me, I think in the first half, of my childhood, I didn't really subscribe to wherever I was from, because it was just so vastly confusing for me. And then later on, when I was able to really discover, Central Asian, North African, and Middle Eastern culture, and really be able to sink my teeth into it, that's when I was able to find myself really happy, because I was connecting with the person that, maybe my ancestors had wanted to be. And in retrospect, because I used to live that life of not knowing really who I was, I know so many people, and there would never be a world where I would look down upon anyone for not doing that.
Definitely. Have you given a thought about your birth parents, and what do you feel towards them?
Yes, of course. I think growing up, like I said, I didn't know much information about, my birth parents. I don't even know if my birth mother's name was real or if it was faked on documentation to be able to kind of abstain from sort of responsibilities and things. But we can refer from the facts. She did have a very, very common Persian name, and that makes it much harder to try to find her. But the question, of course, is not about trying to find them. It's about, my relationship with them, even though I don't even know who they are. I have absolutely zero information on my father, even though, like, I think, like, there's absolutely no information that I had on my father. So therefore, they're these complete unknowns to me. And that's something that I've had to deal with as well. I would say because of, their sacrifice and, decision to give me up for adoption, that is a multi-complicated, a complicated issue that a lot of people have varying opinions on. But for me, I think growing up because of hardships, I grew up with dyslexia and ADHD, and it definitely inhibited a lot of, the way that I live my life and, had gone about schooling and university and everything like that in between. And these are probably things that came from poverty and maybe malnourishment whilst in the womb, we'll say. And, having kind of a complicated relationship with the fact that I've had to deal with these hardships because of potential, like, non-responsibility from my birth parents, that has been something that I've had to deal with. And it's just, it's a double-edged sword. So either way, I don't feel it as like negative or positive. It just simply is.
Do you feel survival guilt?
Survival guilt? Like I said, yeah, I think I feel survival guilt. I think I feel some sense of trying to understand the constructs of adoption. It is neither like a positive nor negative thing. But, definitely I feel really bad when I'm, I feel bad when I see people who are adopted who are experiencing hardship and people who are in orphanages abroad when they experience hardship as well. So I think, definitely like being over here and being able to reap the benefits of, having kind of almost a nicer life than my counterparts. Definitely.
Yeah. I saw that you're trying to make a documentary to find your relatives. What's going on there right now?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm working on a documentary right now that I'm directing. The name of it, the working title of it is Finding Gulnara. And we're trying to, basically it revolves me working around my 23andMe results and trying to find relatives via the technology on 23andMe to be able to find third cousins and developing it and being able to make it into a film and sort of more of a cinematic experience. I think for me, I'm able to really kind of sink my teeth into an experience when I'm able to be a filmmaker as well and be able to cover through it and be able to kind of show everybody what I'm doing through my own lens. So we basically, I found some cousins on the 23andMe app, and I was able to reach out to them and be able to kind of get a good kind of good communication with them. And I found extremely amazing people and extremely, communicative and very, very vastly different stories than mine. And there are so many people that live all over in terms of third and fourth cousins, some of whom live in Toronto in Canada. And I'm stuttering so much. You should edit this out.
Don't worry about it.
The documentary I want to do, it follows these cousins that I have in Toronto because they immigrated here from the Middle East. And I want to go and meet them and be able to discover and reconnect with Central Asian culture and Middle Eastern culture with them. And hopefully they will be able to give me leads, and so I can find my birth family that I don't know where they are. So creating that as a cinematic experience has been extremely, extremely delightful, but also challenging.
So, can you walk me into the process of the DNA test? So I guess you spit or whatever you need to do to give them, and then you agree that okay, I want people to see me, that if I have a relative or whatever. How do they find out that you're related to someone? Obviously by the genes, right? But like how?
Yes, of course. So the at least the 23andMe test, I don't know about any of the other tests. They're done through saliva results. And so you basically you send your saliva in a container over to a lab, and they deconstruct your results and are able to extract the information from your DNA and are able to project it onto an app that allows that shows you basically your ethnic uh, profile, but also anyone else who has done this particular test is able to agree and kind of sign that they also want to have their stuff available and their profile available to people who they're related to. So for people who are adopted, just like myself, or people who have long lost family, this is an amazing technology that so that they can finally reconnect. I know so many friends who are adopted from Central Asia and from Russia who've been able to reconnect because of this.
Yeah, this is one thing I'll never do.
Well, why not? Why not?
I don't want to spit in someone and give them my DNA, make a clone out of me or
let
whatever.
me tell you that the results will surprise you either way.
Oh, definitely. But obviously, listen, for you, it makes so much sense for you to do it. Like it shows you like, where you're really from. I know my mom and my dad. I know where they're from. You know what I mean? That I'm okay. For me, it's more of like, where's my great grandparents are from? Because there's rumors in the family, as always. You're a little bit of Spanish or a little bit Chinese. Like, yeah, sure. I don't know, but this is one. I'm a bit paranoid with these things.
Of course, maybe one day you might want to try it, and there's always time to do it. But not doing it is as good as doing it. There's no right or wrong.
No, there's no right or wrong. It's my, paranoia.
Of course, of course.
It's like when you're playing with your phone, you go to your social media, they follow you. No matter what, they follow you and they're listening to you anyway. But I make it like harder for them.
Oh yes, yes, yes. Of course.
So I say my dia, I'm sure they can get my DNA, no problem, because I have given blood or whatever. But I'm gonna make it harder for them.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Well, we don't want don't want to kind of there's some like conspiracy to try to
Yeah,
think
yeah,
like
yeah.
like
Listen,
so
I'm not special guy. They're not like
I
gonna
don't
clone me or
plan
anything, but you know what I mean?
I don't plan on committing any crimes, so they can have my DNA, and I won't care. It doesn't matter if they clone me in the future. I won't be around in 1,000 years, so if they want to do that, that's totally fine by me
Oh,
right now.
you never know. Maybe the technology will kick in and allows humans to live longer. I saw that you're a musician too. You play guitar.
Yes, I do play guitar, and I've been in a couple of really small and non-represented at all bands. But predominantly, I'm a filmmaker, and that's where I put most and all of my energy into.
What kind of music do you play?
I've done like indie pop, indie rock, some bits of that. Yeah.
That's cool. I used to play guitar. Now I'm too old for this, and not too old, but it takes a lot of time, to be good at it.
You're never too old to be like to pick up an instrument and to create.
Hey, listen, buddy. I have 2 kids. I don't have time to learn to play guitar. I did when I was in high school. I used to play a little bit in college, but then I recognized, this takes so much time. I'm not doing this. I,
What kind of music did you make music, or did you like what kind of music were you into?
I listen to pretty much any music, but when I was playing, I play alternative, folk, rock and roll, but I really like acoustic guitar. I really do.
Yeah. Okay.
This I love the sound of acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's natural. You play electric, right?
Yeah, I do play electric, but like I'm not opposed at all to acoustic. I just haven't, like I haven't done a lot with acoustic guitar in a while. But I think both are extremely beaual, and
No, for
yeah.
sure. 100%. They just listen. I was poor growing up. We couldn't afford the electric guitar. We can.
Well, it's being a musician is also extremely difficult and trying to, kind of generate skill and a lot of times some of the most, like you have to look at it like you want to do it for passion, therefore you might be able to be successful with it and stuff. But I think a lot of the most successful people who do music and a lot of like really successful bands, they don't really, subscribe to wanting to learn music theory, and therefore that makes them better. They don't think about it as competitively. They're doing it because they want to, and therefore they put more passion into it, and therefore maybe the music sounds better.
Dude, I just want to hook up with chicks. That's all I wanted to do. That's why I wanted to learn guitar.
Everybody has their own ambitions.
I grew up in the 90s. The bands were big. Nirvana, Pearl Jam, all those guys. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to start a band. But it didn't work out.
Yeah. No, being a musician is extremely difficult. I think, I wanted to pursue the music thing when I was younger, and like, in high school and like early college and stuff. But filmmaking is kind of really where I find that I have I'm quite a terrible musician, but at least for filmmaking, I'm able to kind of see some results come back. So I think I'm going to stick with that for now on.
Do you write your own music, or did you try?
Yeah, but it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah. Hey, listen.
Released some stuff on SoundCloud, and that was about it. And so I packed it up and said, I did that. It was fun, and so I'm not going to do it again.
Yeah. Oh, I will feel like remiss if I don't ask this. I saw that you still a Russian citizen.
Oh my gosh, how did you? Oh wow, yes, I'm still a Russian citizen. Like talking about this, I think there's a huge elephant in the room. A lot of people who are adopted from Russia, they are still. I don't know how much time we have specifically.
Do your thing. We have time.
Okay, I would love to talk about filmmaking and how like immigrant filmmaking and how that's kind of a process, because that's more of like my own synthesis and everything. But also being able to talk about like Central Asian culture and being able to talk about Middle Eastern culture to an extent. But yeah, in terms of being a Russian citizen, this is why almost the documentary is extremely important, because a lot of adopted people are still, or a lot of Russian adopted people are still Russian citizens. And in Russia, if you've been living under a rock right now, you wouldn't know that there's, the war in Ukraine is still ravaging on. And there's a very, very strict military draft in Russia for boys, basically like 20 to 20 or like 18 to 27. That's the range that they would have to serve in, but they've actually extended that into older middle-aged men's range. And it's an extremely terrifying thing, as the Russian military is like extremely dangerous, and I would never want to be caught serving in it. So this is kind of barred me from being able to go back to where I was born and being able to try to explore that side of myself and be able to travel there. But yes, I do retain Russian citizenship, and I should probably give it up, but it's quite difficult to give up. It involves a lot of paperwork, and you have to go to a consulate and everything.
Okay, so but you were adopted by Americans. I don't like. So are you a dual citizen?
Yes, I'm a dual citizen.
Okay.
Sorry, I totally forgot to mention. Yeah, I'm a dual citizen. I should have clarified that. Yeah, I am for sure an American citizen.
Okay. Well, no, I know you're American, but for me, I'm like, why are you still Russian? Like, it doesn't. For me, it does. It's not adding up. I'm not that smart. Talking about, you said you want to talk about film. I've seen that you won so much awards. I mean, bro, I haven't had the chance to watch your films, but I love your style of your art. It's very. It looks like it's grainy. I feel like it's a little bit throwback to the like a little bit of like the old Soviet films that I used to see, and a little bit of like some French in it. Am I hitting the right target here, or what's going on?
Yeah, I think you're hitting the right target. Yeah, I think as an being an immigrant and being an adoptee and having multiculturalism, not really knowing my not really pertaining to identifying with one of my ethnic backgrounds, but just my ethnic background as a whole has extremely influenced my filmmaking. And just recently, a lot of my films aren't public because we're going on festival runs right now and being able to premiere them at festivals. So therefore, they don't want it open to the public, but we're able to have them screen at festivals. I just recently released a film this past year called Zardovia, My Love, in which I recreated a fake Eastern Slavic country in order to have my film take place in, where I created a fake Slavic language made up from Czech and Polish and Russian, so that a lot of people from the Eastern Bloc and post-Soviet world could be able to understand it. And it follows a character who is adopted, who meets up with a friend from the orphanage that he's from, and they relate to one another, but they also discuss their differences, and they go and they try to find the boy's birth mom. And so it's a short film that's about 15 minutes long, and I was extremely influenced by a lot of Central Asian and Middle Eastern filmmakers. But being in the Midwestern United States, it's extremely hard to come across POC actors and develop a POC story because it's there's not as many POC actors of the specific ethnicities that I wanted to portray in this film. Originally, I wanted it to be a Middle Eastern cast or like a Central Asian cast, so that I could relate to it or relate it more to my own story. So, but for that, I wanted to be able to tell the stories of adoptees from Eastern Europe and from Central Asia and from the Middle East, and be able to, tell a story that really focuses on the kinds of constructs that come from adoption and come from multiculturalism, and be able to play with that dichotomy to an extreme amount.
Do you write the story and the screenplay?
Yes, I for most of my films, I either choose a bunch of my friends to kind of help me write the script. Being a director, it's extremely difficult, and you need multiple people to really help you out with a lot of things. And this goes for writing as well. So I, for Zardovia, I chose some of my friends. One of them notably, who was also adopted from Russia, who I knew from the summer camp that I went to growing up. His name is Valery, and he lives out in Decorah, Iowa right now. And he's a super great guy, and he had helped me kind of develop the story. And so he and I wrote this really awesome short film, and we're touring with it still now. And I guess making that film was something that helped me try to make this documentary that I'm working on right now, because the stories are quite similar.
Do you make money off of this thing when you make a short film?
You can. Here's the thing: when the film industry works like this for young independent filmmakers, you want to make a film, you need money for it. So where do you get it from? You can ask people for money, you can crowdfund it for yourself, and you can try to be able to generate wealth that way to be able to make your films. Another way is that you can grant write, and hopefully a grant will be able to give you and throw money your way. But in terms of like money and filmmaking, I haven't really subscribed to the thought that you need a lot of money to make a good film. Maybe like I'm not talking about my films being good. I don't know if I don't think my
Hey, they
my
win
work is
awards. They're pretty good.
But like it doesn't take a lot of money to be able to make a good film. I think that's where, my passion of, making films that pertain to immigration have really tried to, make them shine through. Being so that, I haven't had a large budget to be able to make these projects, to be able to make these films. A lot of what I shoot on, maybe other people would take a route that involves a lot more, financial concern. But, the creativity that comes from trying to creatively cut corners and make new decisions, it influences the story in such a creative way that it's completely irreplicable if you did have money going into it. So I think that the lack of money in filmmaking creates sort of, it's in dialogue with the creativity of it.
Yeah, 100%. Because, if you ask people money, usually they'll tell you, by the way, do it this way, do it that way, But if you're running the show just from your own money, you can do whatever you want to do. And of course, you don't have much money, then you can be more creative.
No, truly. And like you said, like I didn't even answer part of your first question because I'm just rambling on. But the one of the things that you had asked is like kind of the influence from old Soviet filmmaking. For a lot of my stuff, I take a lot of influence from Central Asian, older 1970s Soviet era Central Asian films and stuff. I haven't been able to watch much modern Central Asian cinema quite yet, but I would definitely look forward to it. But definitely taking from like Middle Eastern filmmaking and kind of the lessons that are learned in those sort of new wave eras, and trying to apply those influences to my own work has definitely done I've been able to do that, and I think I'll stick with doing that for my future projects.
Did you always want to be a filmmaker?
I think, yeah, I've always, as when you're younger, you want to be like a rock star or a professional athlete. And, I was definitely that, like wanting to do those things. But from a very young age, I loved being able to play around with the camera and make really stupid videos with my friends and upload them to YouTube. You'll never find them. But I've always felt that, like, growing up with dyslexia, growing up with learning disabilities, it's kind of hard for me to try to speak for myself verbally, and reading wise. So a lot of what I would do is just make a short video about my experience, whether it was for a school project or whatever it may be. And it turned into a really beautiful passion. So I wanted to pursue that as a career, and it's not an easy career, and I'm still trying to make my way through it.
Hey, that's how it is, man. Grind.
No kidding. Right now I'm on the path to try to, applying to film grad schools because I want to go to, a graduate school and be able to make films under that. And hopefully later on I can be I would love to be a film professor one day and be able to teach filmmaking as a practice in a university setting.
But would you like to create a feature film someday?
Yes. I would love to create a feature film, hopefully inspired by some of my short films and stuff. It's extremely difficult these days to try to create a feature right away. And especially, I think the pandemic kind of did a number on that and stuff. A lot of filmmakers make, a feature film right away, when they're younger. And they learn a lot of lessons through it. And I guess I'm a little scared to try to do that. So I just make a lot of different, short films. But in essence, you could say that this documentary series is almost like a feature film. I want to make it more of an episodic thing. So a bunch of different short episodes that kind of create a larger series that might be more, 90 to 120 minutes.
I like it. Forget about being in the theater now. There's a lot of alleyways now that you could allows you to create movies, right? Like Netflix, HBO, and whatever else, right?
Yeah, I'm like talking about filmmaking and stuff. It's become extremely lucrative and fluid. We have cameras on our body every single day with our phones. You can create anything you want on your phone even and still have it be a really compelling and good story. You just have to, really try to think about the story and what you want to say with it and stuff. And, there might be some uh, sort of motivation to try to get your stuff onto streaming platforms and that's awesome. But they're just, as of recently, there've been so many different ways to be able to kind of market yourself as a filmmaker and be able to really, tell the stories that you want, whether it's on, Vimeo or YouTube or smaller streaming services. And whether, the opposite of the spectrum for that is like big budget Hollywood filmmaking or larger, studio filmmaking.
Yeah. Hey, listen, this is what I always say that I don't care the budget. Is the story good enough? If the story is
Exactly.
good, I don't care whatever else. I recently watched that movie, Triangles of Sadness. Bro, that movie was fire.
Oh my goodness. I still have yet to watch that. I've been so busy, but that's number one on my watch list.
Ah, that movie is fire. Ah,
You
my
liked
God.
it?
Oh, I loved it. I'm like, yo, this is so good. Well, I'm a bit biased because one of the main characters is Filipina. So I was
Hey, I
like,
mean that,
yeah. So I was like,
we
yeah.
love
But
we love to see more representation of that as well,
yeah.
though.
But the thing is, what I love about this too is they didn't highlight that she's Filipina. That's why she's cool. She's cool because she's cool. I hate those movies that shove down oh, they're women or whatever they are. That's why they're awesome. No, I don't care about if you're male, female, or whatever you are. Are you a good character? Like I always say, a good example would be Fargo. Do you know the movie Fargo?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, great example. The woman is pregnant. She's a police. Great character. She's a badass.
I mean, the character was written so that it could be something that deviates from what people might expect her to be.
Exactly. I love those. I love those kind of movies that they don't plaster it to you that hey, you like this character because she's a woman or I don't know, a person of color or whatever. Like this person, like this character because that character is cool. That's it.
Well, I would say, in contrast to what you're saying, coming from, the Central Asian American community, there's very little Central Asian representation just because of, population diaspora and immigration standards, where we're not able to really see a lot of Central Asian representation. And that's, referencing Josh Bro and Malika Bureyeva, who came onto your show and, like they're kind of at the forefront of a lot of this Central Asian representation on new social media like TikTok. And they're really creating a lot of stuff. And I'm always wowed at how good of advocates for almost a whole generation of immigrants, young immigrants from Central Asia they are. They're extremely, extremely well spoken for each other. And I almost feel like an amount of imposter syndrome amongst them. But also, hopefully in the future, we'll be able to see more Central Asian, representation in the media, in film, in cinema, in the arts, in music, hopefully. And, hopefully have that represented. So whenever we can see that, I'll be really, really happy.
Oh, you know what you should do? Telling you what to do. You should talk to Malika and Josh and make a movie with these two.
I'm actually, I just reached out to Josh and he's helping me out as a story advisor for the Finding Gulnara documentary.
Yeah, Josh is
And
very
so
smart.
they're all of them are really, really smart. And I haven't been able to speak to Malika yet, but I really, really want to meet her and everything. It's been kind of great to see them work together as these like, this awesome, really awesome dynamic duo that's educating the masses about, Central Asian culture. And, Malika's from Uzbekistan and Josh is from Tajikistan. And, I hope that more, we see more people from like Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, all these other places be able to kind of tell the stories of their culture as well.
Hey, if you want some Central Asians, I got them Central Asians on my back, man. I love those people. Let me know, I'll hook you up.
Of course, of course. Yeah, hopefully there's more kind of like, I don't know. I think, it's really hard trying to develop these film projects that are about Central Asian themes because nobody knows about them. Therefore, you wonder and you worry if you're going to have an audience. But, being able to watch their work on TikTok, like Josh and Malika, it just proves more overarchingly that there is a very, very, very passionate audience that's willing to listen to Central Asian stories from like, people who are from Central Asia and stuff, especially from, I've been able to see it from Tajikistan because, that's where my roots supposedly lie. And, I can't wait to be able to do this documentary and to be able to create more films that deal with Central Asian issues.
Listen, as a fellow artist, I would like to call myself an artist, even though, whatever.
Podcast making is a definite art.
I approach it as art. So I'll try to, sometimes I pretend I'm an artist, So, anyways, what I'm trying to say is I do not think about the audience when I create art. I create art because that's what my heart and that's my soul says. If they like it, cool. If they don't like it, I'm cool too.
Truly.
A real artist creates. He doesn't think about anything else.
Yeah, that's I totally agree with you. You have to make it. If you make something for the audience, then you're going to be able to pander to what they want or what you think that they want. But you just kind of have to stick to who you are and whatever you really enjoy doing and are extremely passionate about, it will be worthwhile and it will be extremely felt and thought out. And you'll make something that has an immediate standard of expertise and emotion and everything in between.
Yeah, I agree. Like when I started the podcast, there was a friend of mine that was kind of pushing me to do not skits, but like I don't know. He wants me to do things that will get more eyeballs or more listeners, and I said, "That's not me, dude. I can't do that." Okay, yeah, maybe it'll give me more money. Maybe it'll give me more listeners, but I don't want them anyway. If they don't want me, I want them to like me for who I am.
Of course.
So going back to your point about, will there be people watching my film? There will be people watching your film. If it's good, it's good. You know what I mean? People will watch.
Yes, of course. And as a viewer, you definitely want to see more like-minded people like you. So, and there's just so many different people from, I would say, from Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, all the Central Asian countries who probably have missed out on a lot of the things that we can see happening today in the media, especially here in the United States.
Yeah, especially now with the representation is a big thing. Yeah, it takes more time. It's funny though about representation. I had recently had a guest, Gio Espiritu. She's a Hollywood actress, and she's a Filipina. And sometimes when she what do you call this? When you try to get the role.
When she auditions.
When she auditions, and they're looking for Asian, they look for light-skinned Asians.
Colorism exists in so many different communities, and yeah,
it's not. It's not that. It's the casting director focuses on the light-skinned Asians, which is what happened to the representation. You know what I mean?
Yes, of course. But yeah, no, I mean, like in the industry, in like these communities in the industry, maybe they do want to show Asian representation, but colorism still prevails and ruins opportunities like that.
Yeah. It'll all be. I feel like. Do you think racism will end someday?
That is an extremely complicated question. Racism is a man-made construct. So if it is to end, then we should do it by, those means necessary to, eradicate it. It's a collectively responsible thing. It didn't come from anywhere. But that's a question for a completely different person other than me.
No,
But my two cents is that, I think, growing up in the United States and experiencing racism, experiencing racial slurs like completely throughout childhood, I think, yeah, no, it's still like a mind-boggling concept to try to do, but it's obviously a man-made thing, and racism didn't come out of the blue. It's not a natural concept. So therefore, it's the collective responsibility of humanity to try to eradicate it. And politically, wherever this goes, who knows if we'll be able to eradicate it, because it's the humans that defined it.
Is it really man-made? Because I don't know if you see these videos of these monkeys taking a bath in their in like a hot spring. It's in Japan, and apparently these monkeys, they just saw this hot tub and start going there, and they figured, oh, this feels good, so we'll stay here, right? Apparently, the monkeys, excuse me, the monkeys that stays in the water, there are some group of monkeys that they push off, like they're not allowed in the water. For some reason, I don't know why. Maybe they're not. Maybe their fur is different or whatever. But it shows you that they have prejudice in them.
Yeah, and I mean, like, tribalism, yeah, of course exists. It's like quite a different concept. I haven't seen that video, but I think, in terms of, like, I'll just say it from a filmmaking standpoint. A lot of times when, there's just so many really awesome, like, filmmakers who deal with immigrants, immigration subjects. And one of the things that you have to really try to separate yourself from in an industry core, like what you were talking about with your previous guest, experiencing colorism in the acting industry, is the concept of ethnocentricity, in the fact that, like, that means, like, basically the bias that one ethnic group and their culture and customs and traditions are somehow morally better or morally grounded in reality than another different one. So for that, a lot of times you have to really kind of look at these things and look at how you want to represent your own culture, but also be able to show the ills and the issues that happen in your culture and be able to represent them as much as support your own culture.
Well said. I know one of your main goals for filmmaking, making your movies, is representation of Central Asia. But are there another goal or other goals that you have when you're making films?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I'm only part Central Asian. I also, have been able to explore filmmaking for, other groups that I belong to, such as, like the Black community and North African community and Middle Eastern community. And it just kind of goes to show that when I've been thinking about representation, it's extremely a long spectrum and stuff, because, like, where do you draw the line at what is Middle Eastern, what is Central Asian, what is North African, what is Black? These are all vastly different concepts to a lot of different people, but in the regions where they overlap, it's completely different. In terms of filmmaking, trying to, tell a story that's extremely impactful from my life, I only relate my films to my own personal experience. So being able to tell people about the things that I've experienced through an artistic manner, that is my ultimate goal. That is my ultimate reason why I make filmmaking, because I have the passion to, do it, but also it takes an extreme amount of vulnerability that induces a lot of anxiety to me. And it's something that I really am trying to work on. But aside from that, all I can do is tell stories that I have related to and I can relate to, and that's why I do it.
Well said. Listen, Nick, this has been such a great conversation. I really do appreciate you. Before we close out, do you have any parting remarks or anything you want to say?
Very much, like we talked a lot about in this, looking at different, things and trying to explore your own, like trying to explore your own culture in an artistic sense, I think, has been like basically the main theme of what we've been talking about. But I think that there's a certain power in, you know, exploring other things and exploring other cultures and trying to be able to, you know, that's how we can relate to one another, you know, through a path of empathy and, you know, observing other, you know, communities and stuff artistically and stuff from a distance, and hopefully we can understand each other a little bit better.
Wise word from a wise man. Again, Nick, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Aaron. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye. Again, thank you, Nick, for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, listeners, for listening. This is Aaron Deliosa for An Immigrant's Life. I'll see you guys later.